So I wanted to quickly make a video to try and help people to create a dot plot and how to create a histogram and plot data points on it. So we'll start with the dot plot here because it's the simpler one. Really with the dot plot, when you see your data here, let's talk about numbers of hours spent watching TV per week. So we have a certain number of people that we asked how many numbers they spent watching TV. You can see here that they said, okay, 4 hours, 5 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, 4 hours, and 2 hours. So to put this on a dot plot, all I need to do is first of all draw a number line here. The number line has to include the range of numbers that our data is. In this case here, it goes from 1 all the way to 5 because that's including all the numbers that was in the data. So what we can do is just create a little number line here that goes from 1 to 5. Then all we need to do is figure out, okay, how many times did we see the number 1 in our data? Well, the first one here we can look at, and we see that there are 2, and therefore we draw a dot for each time we see that number. How many times did we see 2? Well, we saw it twice. So again, we're drawing 2 dots. How many times do we see 3? We saw it twice. How many times did we see 4? We saw that one twice. And then how many times did we see 5? And we saw that one once. If you say that you had another number in here, let's say that someone else said 4, well then that would just add one more dot onto this dot plot here because we see the number 4 1, 2, 3 times, and we got 3 dots. The other thing to double check is we can count how many numbers we have. That should match up with how many dots we drew for our dot plot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's how to draw a dot plot. For a histogram, a little bit tougher because with a histogram, what we have here is we're kind of going to talk with two different axes here. The bottom one here is going to be ranges. It's not going to be exact numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. More likely when we're talking about histograms, we like to talk about, okay, how many times did we see the numbers between, we'll start here with 300 and 350. And the reason I chose 300 and 350 is because if I look at my data points here for how many calories were eaten for lunch, the lowest number that I see is 324. Again, we have quite a range here. We're going to go all the way up to 503. So that means I'm going to go ahead and choose a range between like 50 units, or 50, in this case, calories. So to create this x-axis here, I'm just going to go up by 50 each time. So we have 400, 450, 500, and 550. Now here's the next thing here that we have to do is that we need a frequency. So just like with the dot plot here, we're trying to figure out how many times we saw the number 1. Well, we're trying to figure out how many times we're going to see a data point in between 300 and 350. So one thing that you could do is create a little table for yourself and say, okay, how many times do we see the number between 300 and 350, between 350 and 400, 400 and 450, 450 and 500, and then 500 to 550. If you'd like, you can create a table that way, and then you can just count the numbers, add them into here, and that might help you. So if we're going to do it that way, we can say, okay, how many times is there between 300 and 350? Well, we have 1, and it looks like that's it. So we can just put a 1 next to that one. Then how many times do we see numbers between 350 and 400? Well, we see this number and this number, so we see 2. How many times do we see numbers between 400 and 450? Now here's a tough one because, okay, well, we are including 400 here. Well, we always include the number on the left. We do not include the number on the right here because that goes in this next one here. So since we have 400, we're going to include that one here. Then 405 and 430, so that would give us 3 points. How many numbers between 450 and 500? Well, it's 0. And then the last one, how many numbers between 500 and 550? That's 1. Now that we know the frequency of how many times numbers show up in between all these, we can create our histogram. So our y-axis here is just going to be, it's always going to be frequency. And so what we can do here is we see our frequency ranges from 0 all the way up to 3. So that's all we really need to go up to. I'll go ahead and add one extra here to 4 just to show us what it looks like here. And we see, okay, how many times do we see between 300 and 350? Go ahead and change this to blue here. Well, we see 1. So we then draw a box that goes all the way up to 1. How many do we see between 350 and 400? We see 2. So then we have to draw a box that goes all the way up to 2. How many numbers between 400 and 450? We see 3. How many times do we see numbers between 450 and 500? Well, we see 0, so we don't have to draw anything for that. And then we see 1 between 500 and 550. And there's our histogram. Again, both the dot plot and the histogram is just trying to show the frequency and how many times we see specific numbers. The dot plot is exact, right? We're seeing, okay, how many times do we see 1, and we plot these points. A histogram is more of a range. A couple of main things to remember about that is, for this one here, is that you create a range here and then you have to count how many times you see numbers in that range. The other thing is, for a number that you see that's actually on one of these dashes here, you include it to the left here. So in this case, 400, we're including it here on the left side and not in this one here. So we're including it, the one over on this side here. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, at 2 o'clock, I'll be on office hours and I'm happy to help. Hope you all have a good day.